Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharma swarupine avatara varishaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. So, as we had announced earlier, the alternate Sunday class will be on the Great Master. One day it will be Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, on the other day, other alternate week, the next week it will be on the Great Master. So we had discussed how Sri Ramakrishna was forced, literally, Sri Ramakrishna's father, Kshudiram, was forced to leave their ancestral Dere village because of his truthfulness. He refused to give false evidence as required by the landlord, who was a very notorious person. And because of that, he had to suffer the consequences. He refused to budge. He refused to give false witness. And that is why he had to come to Kamarpukur, which was a few miles away from Dere village, which was his ancestral village. So they lost all their house and everything. But Shudiram, Sri Ramakrishna's father, was such an honest person and so well known because of his pious nature that his friend Suklal Goswami of Kamarpukur told him, "You come, I had a spare house." So he said, "You can stay." Suklal Goswami he owned some land and he was quite prosperous because that family were the official priests of the kingdom of the nearby princely state. So naturally they had sources of income and he was a very noble person, Suklal Goswami. So he offered Sri Ramakrishna and told him that you can come with, not Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna's father, Kshudiram. Sri Ramakrishna was not yet born. So this was before the birth of Sri Ramakrishna, that Kshudiram with his whole family, one daughter and one son, were already born by that time. So they shifted to this uh, village of Kamarpukur, and after settling down there, they got a house and a small plot of land, which we discussed in our previous class, Lakshmi Jhala, that is the place, a small field along with the house, because they needed some source of income. He did not, he had just arrived at Kamarpukur, and Suklal was kind enough to give a small plot of land so that he could grow some rice. And that paddy which was grown there, that is so auspicious, is considered to be so auspicious that even today, the Anna Bhoga, that is the rice offering that is given to Sri Ramakrishna in the Kamarpukur temple, comes from this field, exclusively comes from this field. So you can imagine how much of punya or merit Suklal Goswami has acquired by donating a piece of land. Even today, the bhoga of the Lord, the rice offering of the Lord, comes from this very field, which sustained not only Kshudiram and his family, but after Sri Ramakrishna was born, for several years, they could sustain themselves by growing rice in this field, which was a kind donation of his friend. So after staying there for 3 or 4 years, after 3 or 4 years of his life in Kamarpukur, fortunately, Kshudiram's financial condition was much improved, and he had developed, by this time he had developed a lot of vairagya because of the nature of the zamindar who drove them out of the village. He had done nothing wrong, such an honest person. His only fault was that he refused to tell untruth. He was so much wedded to truth that they were forced to leave the village of Dere. And he was wondering what kind of world this God has created, where even honest people find it so difficult to live peacefully. So that disillusionment with life, motivated as we saw in the previous talk, Shudiram developed a kind of vairagya. So some preparation was being, the Divine Mother had planned all these things perhaps so that Sri Ramakrishna, when he was born, his father was in a very high mood of renunciation. But somehow, because he had a family to uh, maintain, and his Suklal Goswami, his friend, had given him a small plot of land, he worked very hard, and slowly their financial condition improved because he used to do odd jobs, he used to go and do puja in some nearby houses. So that is how, and with some help of his relatives, he somehow managed to run his household. So his eldest son Ramkumar finished his study of Hindu law and began to do his best to help the family financially. So his son also had grown up, but unfortunately, this Sukhlal Goswami, who was a great help to Shudiram, he died. It was a premature death. I mean, he was not old. He was just of the same age as Shudiram. But that pained Shudiram a lot, because he was wondering, such a noble soul, he had helped him, and he passed away so suddenly. Anyway, the Vairagya actually increased. And seeing that Ramkumar, his son, had already matured and assumed family responsibilities, Shudiram's Vairagya increased, and he said, now I should live a life of Vanaprastha. So he felt relieved, and he focused now. He saw that there is an opportunity now for me to concentrate on other things. And he became eager to visit holy places. That is how India's Varnashrama Dharma, the Ashrama Dharma, where after Brahmacharya, a period of study, after marrying and having a grahastha life for some time, after bearing children, and then when the children grow up, a wise person in society was supposed to take to Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha means following a gradual withdrawal from active involvement in worldly affairs. So Shudiram found that now, because his son had grown up and he was earning some money, so he said, why should I earn money now? At this age, I should be thinking more of the Lord. So he was very eager to go on a pilgrimage, and in 1824, that is 12 years before the birth of Sri Ramakrishna, he went to Rameshwar on foot. Rameshwaram was in the extreme south of India, all of you know. So it took a lot of time, because in those days there was no train travel. People had to just walk. To walk without any money or without just begging for food, because he was a Brahmin, he could get some dharmashalas where he would get some food, or otherwise he had to beg from home to home and then sustain himself and maintain his health because it was a very strenuous journey from Kamarpukur to Rameshwaram, the temple of Rameshwaram. So all the four corners of India, it was a dream of every Hindu in those days to do this pilgrimage to the four main tirthas in the four corners of India. One, Dwarka in the west, Kanyakumari or Rameshwaram in the south, and then Badri in the north, and Kamakhya or Puri in the east. So there are four Jyotirlingas also. Some people used to go there or visit the four corners of India. So he went on foot, and it took about a year for him. 1 year. Of course, he visited other places also on his visit to Rameshwaram. Whichever places he had an opportunity to pass through, he managed to see the holy places, and that is how It took almost 1 year for him. 1824 he went, 1825 he returned. After a year of visiting all the important places of pilgrimage in South India. Now he brought a Banalingam. Banalingam is a stone which is normally found on the bed of this river, a flowing river. Because of the constant wear and tear, it assumes a shape of a oval shape. Salagrama is also there, but there's a small stone image of Shiva, which is known as Banalingam. It is a stone which is normally found if somebody discovers or finds this polished stone, black stone, on the bed of the river, he can use it as a Banalinga to worship Shiva. It is normally, or any other deity can be worshipped in that stone image. So he brought, when he had gone to the south, naturally might have got an opportunity to take bath in many holy rivers. So he, from Rameshwaram, he managed to find one Banalingam and he brought and he started worshipping in his home when he came back. Even today, the Kamarpukur shrine, one sees that very Banalingam, that very Shivalinga, which Shudiram had brought, is still being worshipped. So even today, one can see this Banalingam, which is known as Rameshwar. That Banalinga, name of the, it is also the name of the one of the sons of Shudiram, Sri Ramakrishna's brother. But because it was found near Rameshwaram, it was named Rameshwar Shila. And he brought that stone image. He kept it adjacent to the Raghuvir's stone image. Raghuvir's stone image, you should remember, is not a linga. See, Shiva's symbols are linga and Vishnu's symbols are salagrama. Salagrama and linga, the difference is salagrama is little flat. It can be oval or round, but it is flat compared to the Shivalinga, which is solid. It is not flat, but it can be oval, it can be round, it has several shapes. So there are certain signs where you can get hold of these Banalingams in the river bed, in the shallow river bed. Sometimes you get it in other places as well. And just as the Raghuvir's Salagrama was found accidentally when Khudiram was traveling and a snake was guarding it. So that is a symbol of Narayana, the Salagrama. That is Raghuvir, as an incarnation of Vishnu, that is Raghuvir or Rama. And the consecrated water pot. Shitala, the Devi, who was also the family deity, was worshipped in a pot, sacred consecrated water pot. They call it Ghata. So that is the system. Ghata can be worshipped, or Salagrama can be worshipped, or Shivalinga, Banalinga can be worshipped. So in 1826, long after the birth of her second child, Chandra Devi again became pregnant. She gave birth to a son that year. Shudiram named him Rameshwar. Because he was born after Shudiram returned from Rameshwaram, the second son was born after the first son and daughter. In 1826, the second son of Shudiram, second son was born to Shudiram, and his name was given as Rameshwar. So Ram Kumar was the first son and Rameshwar was the second son. He was born in 1826. So after that, we'll come to some incidents which show the greatness of this family. Ram Kumar was the eldest son of Shudiram. They were a very poor family. Ram Kumar, though he earned, but his father was full of vairagya, so he didn't feel that he should also supplement the income. Whatever little Ram Kumar earned, they were managing to live a very frugal life. So, but in this period, one notices that this Kamarpukur family of Shudiram and his two sons, a new son who was born called as Rameshwar, and the elder daughter or elder one daughter was born to him after Ram Kumar. But Ram Kumar was making a living by interpreting the scriptures, Hindu law codes. You see, ordinary people, they don't have patience to read. So whenever they want to start a new journey or do something, they would consult these priests and perform certain rituals for which they would pay the priests. That is what Ram Kumar also was doing, like his father. But Shudiram was totally trying to detach himself. The Vanaprastha stage of life is when you slowly start disconnecting yourself from your near and dear ones. So Ram Kumar became an expert because the whole responsibility of the family was on him. So he became an expert in these performing these rituals. And some people also say that Ram Kumar, because of his steady adherence to these ritualistic puja and other things, he developed certain powers, some supernatural powers, which is very common. Any concentrated effort, any meditation, deep meditation on a particular thing, that makes you realize the wonderful powers associated with that object of meditation. So as a result of study of scriptures, Shudiram had been very much drawn to the worship of Divine Mother. Though he was worshipping a Salagrama and also a Shivalinga, but his devotion was to the Divine Mother. Somehow that was the family tradition. So Ram Kumar since he became expert, he tried to specialize in the worship of the Divine Mother. So an adept guru came, but they say to perform the Shakta type of worship, you need to be initiated. So one guru came and Ram Kumar took initiation by an adept guru into the Shakti mantra. So there are various mantras, Shiva mantra, Shakti mantra, Vishnu mantra. So depending on who one's ishta is, Ram Kumar was initiated into Shakti mantra by an adept guru. One day while worshipping the goddess, the Ishta Devi whom he was worshipping. So one day when he was worshipping the goddess, his chosen deity, that the chosen deity was the Divine Mother. Then Ram Kumar had a wonderful vision. He was just doing puja as other priests were doing. He was doing it sincerely, no doubt, but he didn't have this attitude. But after he got initiated into the Shakti mantra by a competent guru, by an adept guru. So when he did that meticulously, this worship, he suddenly had a wonderful vision. Ram Kumar had a wonderful vision. With her finger, he saw the goddess wrote on his tongue a mantra for the attainment of perfection in astrology. So he felt as if the Divine Mother has asked him to open his mouth and written the mantra on the tongue for the attainment of perfection in Jyotish Shastra. Jyotish Shastra is one science which these priests, especially in those days, you could not earn a living by just doing some puja in some households. You had to sometimes give them astrological predictions. People are so fond of astrology. Everybody is fond of astrology because everybody wants to know what is the next thing, what will happen. Everybody is bothered about the future. So Ram Kumar had a wonderful vision, and with her finger, that vision of Divine Mother was such, it was so powerful that he could write the name of the goddess with, not he, she, the Divine Mother with her own finger wrote on his tongue, on the sadhaka's tongue, for the attainment of perfection in astrology, because that was what he wanted, Ram Kumar wanted. After that, whenever he saw someone critically ill, who was ill, he could tell whether the person would live or die, or he could be cured. So he had this miraculous powers. That is what everybody believed in the village that Ram Kumar had this wonderful powers because he was given a Siddha mantra by his guru, and at the same time he had read the scriptures, the tantras, and in the Shakti mantra he was even given initiation by adept guru. And of course he was in those days, they used to believe that a person who led a very disciplined life, not just enjoying oneself, if one led a disciplined life, whatever they say would come true. So he had developed certain powers. Of course, you're not supposed to use those powers, but people used to come whenever somebody was ill. He could tell whether the person would be cured or not, and he would suggest some remedies as well. So, this power, because of that power, whatever he predicted came true. So, if he says he's going to get all right, so people started respecting him, and everybody wanted that when they are in some crisis, they go to Ram Kumar and he will say if everything will be all right, then it has to come true. So it was true that he had developed this power through intense vairagya and sadhana also. So because he was initiated into the Shakti mantra. So the goddess herself had written using her finger a mantra of on Ram Kumar's tongue, and this was a result of a vision he had where he saw the living mother approaching, and then of course uh, he, he used to carry on his profession. One of them was astrology. Whenever somebody was ill, he was called. Then he would frankly tell that there's no hope for cure, because he had developed that kind of power, and everything he told came true. Whether it is desirable or not, these powers come when yogis, when people study or they do sadhana, they do mantra japa, they develop their power of concentration. Some trivial powers may come. That is what is being discussed here. So, after this vision of the Divine Mother, which Ram Kumar had, whenever he saw someone who was ill, whenever he was asked, "Oh, why don't you come? Some so and so person is sick." So, whenever he saw someone was sick or ill, he could tell whether that person would be cured and give him the medicine. So, whatever he said became true. So, the whole village wanted to hear from his mouth certain things which they were afraid of, so that they can go without fear, because almost everything what he said would be true. Whatever Ram Kumar said would be true. So now whenever some sick patient was there, now it was all well known in the village and nearby villages that Ram Kumar has this power and he can use those powers to cure a patient. So he had so much power that he used to take some grains and sanctify it and say that I am scattering on the altar sprout these grains. It is a symbolic offering which would help the person to recover. So, and the author of the great master Swami Shardanand says that Ram Kumar's words somehow always came true. So it's not that it was just a fluke, but something was there which could make that Ram Kumar's words would always come true. If he cursed somebody, in fact, in one place, he curses Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna gets quite anxious. He said he's criticized me. He said like this, and if his words come true, which normally comes, it will be a very bad time for us. So people used to avoid because his words came true. So there is one story which his nephew Shibu, he was known as Shibu, Shivaram Chattopadhyay told in a later age. So we'll come to that now. Another example, we'll see the example of Ramakumar's power. Even though he was not very keen to use it, now and then sometimes he used to exploit his own powers which he had developed through a disciplined life. So one day he went to Calcutta on business. He was bathing in the Ganges when a rich man and his rich wife came to take a bath in the Ganga. The young wife was seated in a palanquin which was carried into the Ganges so that she could bathe inside of it. In those days, people would be rather shy to uh, uh, take a bath in the open. Women had to normally take a bath when there is nobody around. Men would of course take bath, and there was no bathroom. They used to always use the pond or the lake. So one day he was bathing in the Ganges when he was in a business trip to Calcutta. He saw a rich man and wife, and the young wife was seated in a palanquin that was carried to the Ganges so she could bathe inside. So they'll keep the palanquin on the bank of the Ganga, and when it was lying there, the lady, the wife of this rich man, would take her bath inside. I mean, in the palki itself, in that manner, or maybe near the ghat. She used to just go and near that ghat or the bank of the river, she used to just take a dip and finish her bath. So Ramkumar had never seen a woman practicing her modesty while bathing in this manner. Normally, the village women would be very open-minded. They'd just go, even if men are bathing on the other side, they would take a cloth, wrap it around themselves and take a bath. So he had never seen, Ramkumar had not seen. For him, it was very common for people to take bath. But here, the lady of the house was so rich that they managed to use the palki itself to take a bath so that nobody could observe. Palki is something which men carry when you are too tired to walk or you don't want to walk. Young women and others would be carried in a palki. So if the husband walked, his wife would be following him in a palki. So that is what palki means, the palanki. So Ramkumar had not seen such a display of wealth when arrangements were made in the palki itself for the wife to take bath, with the rich man's wife to take a bath. So he momentarily, when he was thinking, oh, how can this lady have this wonderful opportunity to take a bath in the palanquin? Normally people had to go to their own bathrooms to take a bath. So how nicely she is protecting her modesty by taking bath in this privacy of the palki, though it would damage the palki, but still they could afford it. Now, through his spiritual power, this Ramkumar, just a little bit of face was a glance of the face of that lady Ramkumar had, and he immediately, words came out of his mouth. It's not that it was some kind of intuition he had, and many times he expressed it very clearly. Ramkumar, he said, alas, the person who is having her bath today, that lady, she may think she is a rich person, but today the same lady would be cremated on the bank of the Ganga. Now she is taking a bath with so much of luxury on the bank of the Ganga, but somehow intuitively felt that lady would die. And immediately when he said that, he repented, because whatever he said used to come true. The woman's husband overheard the remark, and in order to test its validity, he cordially invited Ramkumar to his home. He intended to humiliate Ramkumar. He thought, let me teach this person a lesson. He has he has predicted that his wife would die, and now this fellow, I'll just to test the validity of the statement of Ram Kumar, he wanted to humiliate him, so that, see, you said my wife will die, but see, nothing has happened. He just wanted to prove a point. So he intended, he didn't do right away anything, but he knew that if by some reason, uh, if this prediction is false, if it, as he said, that lady would die, but if she doesn't die, then I can challenge, I can humiliate Ramkumar, saying that your prediction is false. Because the woman was in perfect health and there was no sign that such a mishap could occur. Because, uh, but when in fact Ramkumar had predicted whatever he had predicted come to pass, the man respectfully allowed him to leave. So this is an example of Ramkumar's power. He had some other powers also, which is mentioned. Ramkumar, as I told you, is a eldest son of Shudiram, who has just shifted to this new village. So somehow he's pulling on because of the dynamic nature of his son Ramkumar. So Shudiram had no worry, and Ramkumar had a very moreover regarding his own wife's future, Ramkumar once had made a sad prediction that eventually came true. In fact, he quietly said that he made some sad prediction which eventually came true. So we have heard that his wife was blessed with auspicious sign, Ramkumar's wife. It was probably 1820 when Ramkumar married. His wife was 7 years old at that time. So rather rare that the men are so young. And so Ramkumar married his wife, who was 7 years old at that time. As I told you, in those days, girls were married off very quickly. So Ramkumar, from the day she entered the household as a 7-year-old girl, she came to Kamarpukur, and Ramkumar's fortune he started becoming prosperous. Ramkumar was working day and night to somehow sustain the family. The situation began to improve. New temples were being built, or not new places of pilgrimage they could go, or they did some extra puja, and then their income also increased. Ramkumar was working very hard. So Shudiram's nephew, who was Shudiram had a nephew of which we spoke. He used to send his condition also improved, and he used to send from Midnapur. He was in a high post. So from Midnapur, he used to now and then send some money which they used for maintaining the family. So somehow the poverty was taken care of, and Hindus love and respect somebody. If somebody is born in the family, it is a custom to see that if things improve in the family, that means the boy has brought fortune with him. He is a lucky child and he deserves to be given enough attention. So, so this sending of a fixed allowance from the nephew, Shudiram was very happy, and moreover, Ramkumar's little wife was then the only daughter-in-law in the poor family, because he was the eldest son of Shudiram. So when Ramkumar's little wife was very young, 7 years, she became a favorite. Everybody became fond of her wonderful nature. So we have heard, the biographer says, that because she was indulged with so much care and love, she became sensitive and arrogant. Despite having such wonderful qualities, she became very sensitive and arrogant. So everyone noticed her shortcomings. This little girl child of Ram Kumar. Everybody noticed her shortcomings, but none dared to say anything or correct her because they believed that, in spite of her minor defects, she obviously brought prosperity to the family after her birth. That is how the village people used to think. After marriage, if the girl brings, if the situation in the house improves, then they'll say, oh, the girl has been very fortunate. We married the right person, like that. If the other way also it is there. If something happens, they'll say, see, it is such a bad omen to for this, because of this marriage or because of the lady coming to our family, so many bad things have happened. So fortunately, the small girl, according to the tradition then, brought for prosperity, definitely brought a little more prosperity to the family. So when she became an adult, however, Ramkumar predicted, although she has an auspicious mark, she will die if she becomes pregnant. Now that was kind of warning. Somehow this Ram Kumar, whatever he said would come true. So he had no choice, because suddenly that intuitive feeling would come and he used to say something, and that was everybody was afraid that when you meet him, if it is if he just out of this thing, he out of just out of impulse, or you can say inspiration, he says something, then it will be true, because that was seen. Whatever he has said, in some mysterious way, it would take place. Now, but this is one of the things he intuitively understands, that if my daughter becomes pregnant, if she ever becomes pregnant, she will die. She was suffering from some disease. When she did not conceive, after some years, Ram Kumar was relieved, thinking her to be barren. So he didn't want. Ram Kumar was a little relieved, because if she did not give, because the daughter who will, or if she herself became pregnant, she would die. She would not live. So he was happy that this thing was avoided. But in 1848, at the age of 35, she became pregnant. She didn't become pregnant. She was discouraged, because Ram Kumar had said that the moment she becomes pregnant, she will die. So at the age of 35, she became pregnant, and the child was named Akshay. The boy was born to them. Although this incident took place much later, we have narrated it. We have just discussing this for the sake of convenience. So this is as far as Ram Kumar, the eldest son, who managed to contribute something to the family. Now, there is a wonderful characteristics of this Khudiram's family, the family of Sri Ramakrishna, where he was born. So every member, one peculiar routine they had. Every member of Shudiram's family was endowed with a special characteristic. Shudiram had till now two sons and a daughter. Of course, Sri Ramakrishna was his other son. But he very wisely, every family in this Shudiram's family, or every member in the family had some unique characteristic, which made this family really well known all over the village and also other areas. So that is why it seems Shudiram and his wife were also endowed with divine qualities, and the children inherited their traits. So it's only the traits that will be inherited. So the subtle powers, if we examine deeply, the subtle powers which originate from the spiritual realm, each person has the capacity to manifest these subtle powers which come from the depth of the spirit. If we understand this, that is what the author says. Shudiram's family, it was imperative that every member of the family shared these characteristics, these unique characteristics, and that will make them bold, brave, and strong. So it seems that Shudiram and his wife also were endowed with these divine qualities, just like uh, uh, this the other persons in the family. There are lot of stories have been recorded here, which we'll be discussing, which showed this particular trend or particular power that Kshudiram possessed. Now, Chandramani Devi also, the mother of Sri Ramakrishna, also had a lot of divine visions from time to time. So before Ram Kumar's marriage, who was the eldest son, she saw one incident. She saw a following incident took place. 15-year-old Ram Kumar was just hardly 15 years and the girl was 6 to 7 years. So anyway, this 15-year-old Ram Kumar, who was then studying in the Sanskrit school, he had not even completed. See, that was the trend in those days. You marry off the son even while he is at school. Somehow it worked at that time. So anyway, the 15-year-old boy Ram Kumar, who was recently married, he was studying in a Sanskrit school and contributing to the household by performing rituals and other homas. That was their profession. If they did that, they would save and a lot of money. The 15-year-old Ram Kumar, though he was young, he was so enthusiastic, and though he was studying in the Sanskrit school, he contributed a lot to the household, to the householders. Maybe they were relatives, but it has helped a lot of people. So he also contributed by working in some different homes, some doing some puja, Satyanarayan puja and all those things, which gave him a meager, some little income. So he was practically, the financial worries had gone. But one day, Chandra Devi had a wonderful vision. It was full moon night, Ashwin, that is mid-September or mid-October, and Ramkumar had gone to perform the worship of Lakshmi. That is what they do in India, the goddess of fortune, in the house in Bhursubo, a nearby village. So he said, what is there? It's a little near. As midnight passed, her son did not return. The mother was worried. Naturally, son did not return. Chandra Devi became extremely anxious. She went outside, waited, and grazing up the road. She was just looking. She was wondering, what is this? She saw someone coming from Bhursovo. This was a kind of vision. It was Ashwin, that is mid-September, mid-October. It was quite cold. I mean, it can be cold in September also. So thinking of that her son was coming, she joyfully walked a short distance and waited for him. When that person came close, she realized that it was not Ram Kumar, but a beautiful woman, adorned with various ornaments. So walking alone towards her, Chandra Devi suddenly realized, she was so apprehensive, that evil had befallen her son. So she was not surprised when she saw this aristocratic young woman walking alone so late in the night. So Chandra Devi comes to her and asks simply. She was so simple, she didn't know the difference between a dream and a vision, dream, vision, or whatever it is. She thought everything that she perceives is real. So Chandra Devi came to that lady and asked simply, my child, where are you coming from? The woman replied, from Bhursubo. Chandra Devi then asked anxiously, do you want to see my son Ram Kumar? He is coming back. It did not occur for her at that moment to ask herself how a strange woman could possibly know her son. This he had not thought. But consoling Chandra, the woman replied, yes, I am coming from the same house where your son went to perform worship. Don't worry, your son will be back soon. So Chandra was very much relieved that Ram Kumar was safe. But she developed certain powers during that stage. She, observing some people were extraordinary, costly bangles and other jewelry were being worn, expensive clothing, and listening to the sweet voice of a person, Chandra asked, "My child, you are so young. Where are you going this so late at night wearing all these ornaments? What kind of earrings are those?" Smiling, the woman replied that they are known as kundala, that or those ornaments. I still have a long distance to go. Thinking her to be helpless, Chandra Devi affectionately said, she could not make out that it is just a dream. Said, "My child, please rest at our house tonight and go to your destination tomorrow." She was so innocent that she did not know the difference between a dream person and a real person. The woman who had appeared to her in the dream said, "No, mother, I have to go. I shall visit your home another time." So, this is what this chapter says now. The woman took leave of her and walked in the direction of the Laha's granaries. Now, the vision continues. Close to Chandra Devi's house, surprised to see her going around towards Laha's instead of following the road. Uh, Chandra Devi, though she saw this vision, she could not distinguish between what is real and what is. She was very innocent. So she just behaved as if the vision which she is seeing has happening, literally is happening. She saw this woman in a vision walking towards the garden. She thought really a woman is walking. So, and seeing that woman take leave and going to in the direction of the Laha's granaries. Laha was a very rich zamindar, so naturally they had huge granaries where they would store grain. So, surprised to see her going towards the Laha instead of following the road, she took a detour, this vision which she was seeing. Chandra Devi thought that the woman had lost her way, not knowing that this is a vision, this is not something which is absolutely real. So, but at that time she thought, Chandra Devi thought that this is a real vision. So she started rushing after her. "Where are you going? Are you missing the path?" So she looked all around, but somehow that woman vanished. Even then, she was not convinced that this was a vision. It is not nothing, something real. So recalling the conversation which she was talking with that person in the vision, that lady in the vision. So Chandramani Devi said, a thought suddenly flashed in her mind. She might have seen Goddess Lakshmi. Is the vision that I saw that of Goddess Lakshmi? How did I not recognize? Why did I consider this vision or the woman whom I saw in the vision to be a trivial person? She might have been Lakshmi. Excited because there was so much of jewelry and all, Chandra rushed to her husband and told him the whole incident. She rushed to her husband and said, "See, this is what I saw." A vision which was so real that I thought we are part of that. So after listening to this whole story, Shudiram assured her, saying, "Goddess Lakshmi has graciously revealed herself to you. Don't worry." After a while, Ramkumar returned on him. He was amazed to hear about this story which he heard from his mother, Chandra Devi. So these were the different visions. We are anticipating the arrival of Sri Ramakrishna now. Sri Ramakrishna is not yet born, but these were the wonderful visions occurring to both the father and mother of the would-be child who was yet to be born and would become Sri Ramakrishna. So she had this kind of wonderful parents who had great wonderful visions. So after a while, Kshudiram assured that, "See, Lakshmi, it is definitely Lakshmi. Otherwise, how will that woman vanish?" So Lakshmi has come in the form of a woman. So just hold on to that thought, and she has graciously revealed herself to you. After a while, Ramkumar returned home. He was amazed to hear the story. Now, Shudiram again takes another pilgrimage to Gaya. First was Rameshwar. After that, his second child, Rameshwar, was born. He was named after that Shivalinga which he worshipped in Rameshwar. But now he felt that he should go to Gaya. She had already developed a lot of Vairagya, this Kshudiram. So naturally, a noble thought came to his mind that let me go. Now my son is taking care of the house, Ramkumar is taking care of the house. I can as well go to Gaya, the Bodh Gaya they say, where the Vishnu temple is there, famous, where people go to perform the rituals for the redemption of the departed ancestors. So people could go to Gaya and perform their Shraddha and pay our homage to the already departed ancestors. Even though they had departed long ago, it is never too late to go to Gaya. Gaya is a special place of the ancestors, people who have passed away. They can be propitiated. See, Hindus believe that there is a Sukshma Sharira, and that Sukshma Sharira, till it is born again, it continues to live in a ethereal form. So uh, he thought, let me go. Kshudiram thought, I can do my duty towards my ancestors, many of whose Shraddha and the other rituals would not have been performed. But they say if you perform the rites and the rituals, if you to go to both Gaya or Kashi or some other holy place, then all your bad karma will be removed. That is what Hindus believe. So he decided, Kamarpukur, Kshudiram from Kamarpukur, he decided to go to Gaya on foot, which is nearly 300 miles, which would have taken such a long time. So, but he decided to go, and Hriday, who was the son of Kshudiram's niece, that is Hemangani, about whom we spoke, she told an amazing story about the trip that Kshudiram made to Gaya. So that is that amazing story we will discuss now. Hriday has mentioned this. Hriday, who is a nephew, mentioned this because there was no way this biographer of the great master could have understood how the things unfolded, especially the trip to Gaya. So Hriday was the only person who had witnessed, who was alive at that time. So he could give a fairly good description. So during this time, Kshudiram went to Anur. Anur is a village to visit his daughter Katyayani, who, after receiving news that she was seriously ill, his daughter Katyayani was perhaps uh, uh, staying there in the village Anur. Anur was the village nearby where Katyayani was staying after her marriage. So she was about 25 years old, and observing her behavior and the manner of conversation, that Kshudiram came to the conclusion that a spirit has possessed. In those days, they believed a lot in these things. He believed that the peculiar behavior, how Katyayani appeared to be seriously ill, he thought because it was because of the evil spirits. So Kshudiram firmly believed and was convinced that a spirit had possessed her. And concentrating deeply on God, he addressed the spirit in his daughter's body. Then he said, whoever you may be, whether you are a god or a demigod, why are you tormenting my daughter this way? In the Hindu system in the Hindu Shastras, we believe that the subtle body, unsatisfied subtle bodies, subtle beings, they go to they catch hold of weak-minded people and possess them. Possessing ghosts or maybe these spirits, evil spirits, possessing is a well-known fact. It is also there in Christianity, and the possession by some evil spirit. So, but Kshudiram was having this, he used his prayers, he used his spiritual courage, and he used his spiritual attainments to remove the influence of this possession. So he goes and prays, saying, whoever may be, whatever you may be, a god or a demigod, why are you tormenting my daughter this way? leave her at once and go somewhere else. So he's saying, just spare my daughter. Why are you tormenting my daughter? Just spare her. So leave at once and go somewhere else. You can catch hold of somebody else. So at this, they say, I mean, Hridaya had observed these things. The spirit got frightened. That was the story which Hridaya told the biographer, that once Shudiram uttered these mantras, asking the spirit to leave. She said, don't torment my daughter this way. Immediately, the spirit became frightened and timidly answered through Katyayani. So the spirit could speak because they cannot speak themselves. They have to use certain weak-minded persons who can easily be hypnotized to express what the spirit wants to say. That is what Hindus believe. So he says the spirit became terribly frightened when he was asked to leave the body of his daughter, of Krudiram's daughter Katyayani. So she, while going, the spirit said, see, if you promise to perform the rites and offer a pinda at Gaya to release me from the present suffering, I promise to leave your daughter right now. I assure you that the moment you leave this house for this purpose, your daughter will be cured. So Chudiram was told by this spirit, they had the capacity to speak through other people. So they said, please, timidly, that spirit who had realized that his spiritual power was making life difficult, said, can you, I promise I'll leave your daughter right now. She has been possessed by my spirit, but I'll go. But provided uh, you perform certain pinda, there are some shraddha and other kriya in Gaya. When you go to Gaya, you offer this pinda. Pinda is some rice balls and other things they made of foodstuffs and leave there for the spirits to eat. The spirits cannot eat directly, so they say it is through some animal or the crow especially. We ask the crow to come and eat. So when they eat it, the spirit becomes satisfied. That is the idea. So the spirit told, it seems, that I will leave your girl if you proceed to some other country. If you leave this house for this purpose, even then your daughter will be cured. So we'll continue in the next class. In the next class, of course, is gospel, but the next class is we will continue the story, how it happened, the spirit talking through the medium. Spirits or the dead, evil or good spirits, both cannot directly talk. So they have to possess some person, and the voice of that person changes. It resembles the voice of the person who has possessed this girl. So suddenly that spirit says, how can I prove that I will leave this place? If you do these offerings, I'll give a proof that I am leaving, that a big branch of the Margosa tree will fall down. If that branch or the big tree falls down, then you may consider that you are definitely released. Your daughter is released from the clutches of this ghost or this spirit, evil spirit. So we'll continue in the next class. If there are some questions, you may ask. It's now we'll have a lot of descriptive incidents, because the background, the whole family, even before the birth of Sri Ramakrishna, the wonderful incidents. It is a good Leela Chintan. We can think about the Ishta or think about God by meditating on these different incidents. Thanks to the great master, these have been carefully preserved. Shraddhananji, since he was not witness to these incidents, had to depend on people who were alive at that time to give accurate descriptions, and with great accuracy, he has noted down the reminiscences, whatever they could remember, whatever many of the people who had seen Sri Ramakrishna, who had lived in Kamarpur and later on lived with Sri Ramakrishna, even in Kolkata, they could all, if they wanted, they could recollect and uh, describe this. So this is a good way, though the incidents are very simple and nothing significant, but this just shows that the family of where Sri Ramakrishna is going to be born is not an ordinary family by any means. That is the whole gist of what we discussed today. So I'll conclude. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Yeah, there is one question. There are several creeds that work with such spirits, with the dead. For instance, in Latin America, they leave candies and offers on the ground. My question is, are these things real or is superstition and suggestion? See, it is all mixed up. You cannot see these are not real. In some cases, they may be real, but in majority of the cases, uh, all these rituals are of no use because there is no spirit which is possessing evil spirit or good spirit which possesses a human being. It can be some kind of hallucination, can be some mental aberration which makes them behave in a way, and people think it is because of the possession by the spirits. But sometimes it may be genuine because scientifically it is true that departed souls, if they have very strong desires, they are not easily released from the bondage of the body. So they'll continue to hover around, catch hold of some weak people, catch hold of everything, and get their desire fulfilled. That is a very unfortunate part of these spirits, that they don't have the body, but they want to enjoy. They had so much of enjoyment in their life before they died that they want to continue even in the so-called heaven. There's no such thing as heaven, but the so-called place where you go when you drop the gross body in the subtle body. So most of the cultures believe this, but you can't say it is superstition because it is true, or it has to be considered as true. That is how the trees grow. That is how nature conducts itself. So all these incidents which are happening, they, however superstitious it may be, we have to discount the fact that some of these things should be real. They are definitely real. It's not an unknown thing. So that is what I feel. Yes. How can these people protect themselves from the spirits? So they can see, first of all, you have to ascertain whether it is a spirit or it's just a mental aberration. Possession by the spirits and some behaving in a similar way because of some other ailment is totally different. So you can't say that one has to get, if there is no spirit and if one is behaving as if there is a spirit, then it is very difficult. So there's no question of protecting themselves. They are not so harmless unless one is very weak. One has to remember that spirits can influence only weak minds. If the mind is stronger than that of the spirits, then they can't impact us. Yes. So I'll take your leave. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.